It's over!
He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net.
Nice one.
Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both teams.
Hi, welcome to Firstpost. I'm Rupha Ramani. Let's get started. The sports fan, a lot of you, plays a very critical role in sport. They can completely lift a team and make them feel like they're on top of the world, or they can also completely demoralize a player. Brazilian footballer Richarlison admitted to being depressed owing to the pressures to perform. We try finding out, is this the case with Brazilian footballers? And is Pat Cummins the new messiah for Hyderabad? The team that has had a woeful last 3 years at the Indian Premier League has suddenly started playing like a brand new franchise. Cummins has charmed everyone, even as the boos couldn't stop raining on Hardik Pandya. A tale of two contrasting captaincies coming up, and as we say, we don't like change, but probably one man doesn't seem to have enough of it. It has to be the genius that is Novak Djokovic. Why has he broken up with yet another legendary player and coach Goran Ivanisevic? Stay on for more, but first, Sports 360. Over in tennis, men's world number 3, Jannik Sinner is through to the semi-finals of the Miami Open. He beat Thomas Makach 6-4, 6-2 in straight sets. Sinner will next face Russia's Daniil Medvedev in a rematch of the Australian Open final. Medvedev beat Nicholas Harry in straight sets to reach the semi-finals. Over in football, Lionel Messi gave an interview recently saying he will only hang up his boots when he's no longer enjoying the game or helping his teammates, and that his age won't be a deciding factor in his retirement plans. Messi, who currently plays for Inter Miami, will turn 37 in 3 months. In Formula One, Mercedes boss Toto Wolff sees Red Bull's Max Verstappen as a prime candidate to replace Lewis Hamilton in 2025. Verstappen, a triple world champion, is currently on contract with Red Bull till 2028 though, but internal tensions have cast a doubt over Verstappen's future with the team. In badminton, Indian ace shuttler PV Sindhu entered the round of 16 at the Madrid, Spain Masters. She registered a comfortable 21-16, 21-12 win over Canada's Wen Yu Zhang. It took just 30 minutes for Sindhu to beat her opponent. She will next face Chinese Taipei's Huang Hu-sun. And the Khamzat Chimaev and Robert Whittaker fight will headline the inaugural UFC card in Saudi Arabia. Dana White announced the main event along with 4 other fights scheduled for the same day. Indian cricket fans do not like Australian cricketers. Well, not unless he's a superstar who's had great rapport with, say, an Indian legend like Shane Warne, or it's someone unbelievably cute and talented like Elisa Perry or Meg Lanning. It's not about the superficiality, no. Aussies are the second rivals to India right after Pakistan, so it's pretty much war. You can possibly admire their skills from a distance, a fair distance, but you cannot really like them and worse, become a fan, which is why a lot of us were skeptical when Hyderabad franchise decided to spend so much on someone like Pat Cummins. You knew he would be made captain, an Aussie captain, and there is some reason for that. Apart from an Indian captain, Aussies have been the most successful. 3 IPL titles by Aussie captains, so yes, makes sense. But after Pat Cummins vowed to silence the Indian fans at Ahmedabad and that heartbreaking defeat in the final of the Cricket World Cup, Pat Cummins was definitely a marked man. So the road ahead was already steep. And helming a franchise that has finished at the bottom or near about of the points table over the last 3 years, Cummins had his hands full. That narrow loss in the first game, despite a few good performances, again reiterating the point. But what a fantastic turnaround it was at home against Mumbai Indians. Records tumbled. Hyderabad worked up a storm, won at home after what felt like ages, and the batters were monstrous. Let's get the records out of the way then, shall we? Most runs scored in a single IPL match in the history of the league. 523 between both the sides. Highest ever individual team total scored, 277 for 3. That's what Hyderabad scored batting first. Most sixes hit in a single game, 38. first batting pair to complete 50s in less than 20 balls. That was Abhishek Sharma and Travis Head for Hyderabad. It was not a great night if you were a bowler, but Hyderabad played like a new brand of cricket. Attacking and impactful. They recognized their strength, which is their batting, kept a flat deck and piled on the agony. They brought in Travis Head and he and Abhishek Sharma unleashed mayhem. And when that was halted, Aiden Markram and Henrik Klaasen dug in and annihilated the Mumbai attack. Klaasen proving to have the season, proving to be consistent and deadly this season, a super combination. It was going to be difficult for any team to chase that humongous total down. It was a battle half won. The Mumbai came out with a solid response in quarters. They couldn't really get past that target. The other reason was not the lack of firepower in the batting department. They have the hitters, though Surya Kumar Yadav would have been sorely missed. But Pat Cummins and his acumen paid off. He made some strategic bowling changes, and some key overs towards the middle of the innings proved to be the difference. Pat Cummins, the leader, is emerging, coming to the forefront compared to Hardik Pandya, who's not having a great outing as a new captain, but credit to his quiet confidence and the Mumbai dressing room that is keeping things cool. They released a video recently of how Hardik was encouraging the lot despite the heartwarming and heart-wrenching defeat, rather. It is, after all, a long tournament and you need to ride the ebbs and flows. But let's speak about Pat Cummins, the man who supposedly silenced Indian crowds, has gained some fervour with the way he has gone about his business in this franchise. And it's all just begun. In a sponsor event, for example, for the Hyderabad franchise, in fact, the crowd chanted silence all over just to get Pat Cummins to do that shushing gesture and broke into claps and cheers. The fans clearly like this Aussie at the helm, so far at least. He's a leader who's clearly charming the masses, and just to delve into what makes him the leader he is, Cummins early last year, in fact Jan 2023, was deeply affected by the death of his mother, Maria, who passed away suffering from cancer. And he said that he was in the middle of a tough Indian series during that time. And Australia, in fact, lost that series because his mind was obviously away with his mother. And he said that phase transformed him, his psyche as a leader. He became more understanding, more giving. He encouraged his team, his men, to strike the right balance between life and work, cricket and family, wins and losses. And maybe that's exactly what Hyderabad needs a load of at this point. A team that has seen the highs, and a lot of good highs, as well as a very, very huge stretch of lows. And him coming in with his philosophy is possibly going to get the best out of this bunch. And after that win or loss, doesn't matter much, does it? That's what he comes with. But it is ironical how life flips a switch. Pat Cummins just months ago was at a position that Hardik Pandya finds himself in currently. At that Cricket World Cup, Pat Cummins was the enemy. He was not booed, but the cheers were only for India to win. Now come IPL, Pat Cummins was cheered during the game and Hardik Pandya was booed instead. So it was not just Ahmedabad, but even Hyderabad that was giving it off to Hardik. But here's the thing, the biggest champions strike hard when they are cornered. And if Pat Cummins could silence a packed Narendra Modi Stadium, the biggest stadium in the country, Hardik Pandya will be striving to do much of the same. Novak Djokovic, you can love him, hate him, but the only thing you cannot do is ignore him. One might not agree with many things like his philosophy or even his temperament. But despite all that, the Serbian continues to rise in the tennis world. He's an unbeatable force at 36. And his 24 Grand Slam titles is a living proof of that. And if numbers aren't enough, then the fact that he competed against two legends at their prime and toppled them on their most favored surfaces says a lot about his tenacity and strength. And it is possibly this quality that can be a handful for anyone to deal with. A lot has remained the same for Djokovic over the years. His quest to be the best, his aggressive intent, his game, his diet plan, his intensity, and yes, of course, his dry humor as well. But one thing has changed constantly, and that is his coaching staff. And the latest to face the axe is Goran Ivanisevic. Ivanisevic, who himself is a Grand Slam winner, was Djokovic's coach. He'd been with the Serb since 2018. That is a long relationship. Djokovic announced the breakup via his social media handle.
I remember clearly the moment I invited Goran to be part of my team. It was back in 2018 and Marian and I were looking to innovate and bring some serve magic to our duo. In fact, not only we brought serve, but also lots of laughter, fun, year-end #1 rankings, record-breaking achievements, and 12 more Grand Slams. Goran and I decided to stop working together a few days ago. Our on-court chemistry had its ups and downs, but our friendship was always rock solid.
Before Ivanisevic started working with Djokovic, the Serb had 12 Grand Slam titles, and since 2018, he's added 12 more of those to his cabinet. So clearly the partnership, at least on paper, was working. So why the change? And this isn't something we have seen for the first time. Djokovic has consistently done that. Ivanisevic was brought into the team for working on Djokovic's service game, and it was an area that he was struggling with. And understandably, he chose Ivanisevic, one of the best servers in the sport. And after he came on board, there was a massive shift. Djokovic's first serve averaged 120 miles per hour in 2023, the same serve that was as low as 115 in 2015. So there was a massive improvement, and things were still smooth. Even last year, Djokovic won 3 out of the 4 Grand Slam titles, only losing Wimbledon, and that too to the young Carlos Alcaraz. But being at par is never enough for Djokovic, is it? And the blip in the past 3 months might have triggered the decision. Djokovic has lost 3 of his 4 matches to star on the rise Jannik Sinner. This included the Australian Open 2024 semi-final. And having followed his career, that is enough reason for Djokovic to try something new. His goal to remain number one not only pushes him, but also the people around him, the people who are working with him, associated with him, something Ivanisevic has acknowledged in the past.
He's not an easy guy. Let's put it this way. Especially when something's not going his way. He keeps you stressed. The stress level is always high. It never goes down. But every day, you learn something new.
So Djokovic doesn't just keep his opponents on their toes, but also his coaching staff. Maybe that's one reason why he's had so many coaches across his career. Djokovic is never happy. There is always something to better, something to improve, work on. So when the initial goal set with the coaches achieved, he gets on to the next. And think about it. His coaches are not just tennis players. They are legends, Grand Slam winners like Goran Ivanisevic, Andre Agassi, Boris Becker. Even the split with former coach Andre Agassi was just as abrupt. The duo worked together for only 1 year and then split up in 2018. The reason there, though, was a conflict regarding Djokovic's diet.
He's just that kind of guy. He needs ownership over his own process. So if he's not having the energy or the strength, that's something he will figure out on his own. I've always believed in eating a healthy range and a quantity of protein. But for years, he did it his own way. We agreed to disagree far too often for me to feel like I was helping him. And I cared too much about him to just watch him go through something I felt I could help him with.
It's quite surprising that in a sport where people tend to stick to their regime, their routine, their coaching staff, and believe in a set process, especially when it's working, Djokovic continues to seek challenges and changes. We say, why try fixing what isn't broken when the method has been successful, especially for years? Why start from scratch with someone new? But the man we're talking about is no ordinary person. He's Novak Djokovic. He's only 1 Grand Slam title away from surpassing Margaret Court to have the most slams in the history of the sport. So I can say this, he won't stop even after that. So clearly his quest to keep winning is not just that. There is a quest to also keep sharpening his skills, keep him motivated, to look for constantly getting better. And with youngsters like Alcaraz and Sinner snapping at his heels, he knows he needs to go that extra mile, jump that inch higher, serve that few miles faster, run those few times harder to keep up with the next generation. So for that, he believes it's time for change. They also say the only thing constant is change. And Novak Djokovic, too, seems to be the biggest exponent of that thought. Football is an intense sport. The biggest driving force is passion. Passion that keeps everyone on the edge. Managers, club presidents, all want results, wins and no less. And if things don't go their way, then violence erupts. Fans want wins. Losses just won't do. And that can result in mayhem. Fans are passionate, yes, but some are also a little too harsh and cross that line. The sport is intense, and the ones in the middle of all of this, facing all the heat constantly, are the players. And at the pinnacle of this sport is the World Cup, an aspiration for every team and for a country, particularly like Brazil. It's worse. They have a record 5 World Cup titles. So if pressure from fans, managers and family was not enough, there is the burden of history, of the precious generation, of the legacy that needs to be maintained. Anything less than a trophy is a failure. The pressure is immense, so players are bound to crumble under it, like Brazilian striker Richarlison. He opened up on facing depression after his country's quarter-final loss to Croatia at the 2022 World Cup, so much so that he thought of even giving up the sport. Given the pressure that Brazil players face, is he the only one though?
A country suffering through internal political tensions, poverty, among many other pressing concerns. But the one thing that gives Brazilians much joy in all the sadness around is football. So it's understandable for a nation that is crazy about football to put all their expectations on their international football team. The country has also produced some of the greats of the game. But it's been over 2 decades since the country last lifted the World Cup trophy. For a 5-time world champion, that's quite the title drought. And the lack of success over time is continuously adding pressure on the players. One player has come out in the open to talk about it. Richarlison opened up on battling depression after Brazil's 2022 World Cup exit. He broke down while speaking about the incident.
I'd just played in a World Cup at my peak. I was reaching my limit, I don't know, I'm not going to talk about killing myself, but I was in a depression there. And I wanted to give up. Even I, who seemed to be mentally strong, after the World Cup, it seemed like it all fell apart. I think the therapist, like it or not, saved me, saved my life. I only thought rubbish. If you need a psychologist, look for one because it is nice for you to open up like that, for you to be talking to the person.
Richarlison's statement has shocked the football world. His former club Everton and current setup Tottenham have both expressed their support. But the statement is an eye-opener. The burden Brazilian players feel is worrying. You could sense a bit of that agony when Brazil succumbed to a 7-1 humiliation against Germany in the 2014 World Cup semi-final. Players were seen crying, the home crowd looked devastated. The nation went into mourning. Every Brazilian player looked utterly dejected. Reactions in the media proved how much pressure players must have felt. Every local media outlet had their own headlines insulting the national team for such an embarrassing display. Clearly, the country doesn't take football just as a sport. They consider it as a statement of life and death, and it all comes from the passion they have for the game. Famous Uruguayan writer Eduardo Galeano once said, "There are towns and villages in Brazil that have no church, but not one lacks a soccer field." Not sure how true that is, but it is a statement that clearly shows how invested the country is in football. Something that was backed by the former head coach of the national team, Tite.
The pressure is natural. Brazil have the biggest history in football, and with that legacy always comes the pressure. We have some of the players that call the biggest media attention in the world, so we take it naturally. It's our dream winning a World Cup. Pressure is inevitable.
He said the team takes it in their stride. But do they really? Many may not show it, but it has to affect them all in some way. Richarlison's statement is a wake-up call. Shouldn't football be taken as just a sport? Because the nation will continue to pile pressure on their players. What also hurts the team and the sport in the country is the lack of a tight and clean administration in place. The Brazilian Federation has also been facing the heat for a while for their shoddy practices for some years now. So picture this: pressure from fans, pressure to perform, and a system that is not exactly supporting you. A Brazilian footballer is utterly cornered. How long before this scenario changes?
Time for last serve. Lionel Messi brings sports heroes together, and he seems to have a fan base amongst tennis stars too. David Beckham presented Stefanos Tsitsipas and Paula Badosa something rather special when they visited the Inter Miami's training ground. Not bad dribbling skills there for a tennis player, but that does it here on First Sports. I'll see you again tomorrow. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.